mute and then by the way. Yep. Okay, say hi Ben and then in the top right it says admin, click on that.
Okay. All right, I'm going to do that now. Hello, XFC stream watchers. My name is Ben, and I'll be commentating for this match. We have a 2v2 with Big D and 4 Asians, or something like that, and the Force. I don't know. We have Fire and Matthew 422 on the red lines, and Ebac and Kaiju Jones on the blue lines. Oh, wait. Reefscape. All right, here we have a strong start for the red lines, both getting their preloads in auto. Blue lines coming back with 4 pieces. Red lines getting their lollipops and pieces from the station. And looks like they will come away with 6 pieces in auto, while blue only gets 4. That'll leave blue lines with a 51-point advantage, although red lines just came back, placing a few more coral after that. Matthew 422 going over to steal some algae from the red side. Seems like he's facing a little bit of pressure from Kaiju Jones, but he gets around it and gets another algae. Fire, on the other hand, scoring L2s on the red line side. Seems like he's doing a solid job of that, holding down the fort over there. Matthew still stealing algae, while Kaiju Jones and Ebac hold down the fort for the blue lines. Ebac processes some algae, likely to get away from Matthew 422. Kaiju over here doing some double cycling, it seems. See, Ebac and Matthew fling an algae out of play. It seems like there's no more algae on the blue side of the field. There's only one Ebac's robot. Matthew 422 grab another algae, put it in the reef. Looks like his mission is to clear off all the algae off the reef for the red lines. Seems like Ebac is going to go over to their alliance and steal some algae. potentially flinging all the other algae over to the blue line side of the field as well. Seems like Kaiju Jones is still holding down the fort with the double cycling. Scores right now are 132 to 121. Red Alliance advantage. Fire facing some defense from Ebac on the processor. Seems like Ebac is not willing to let that algae go unwasted. Matthew, on the other hand, getting a quick pass from Fire and putting that algae in the barge. Looks like he's going to steal some algae from the blue line's reef. Ebac trying to get a penalty, not quite getting it. He's going to process that algae that's stuck in his robot anyway. Matthew trying to collect more algae. Seems like he's having a little bit of trouble picking it up, but he goes over and gets it. Ebac and Kaiju Jones still cycling pieces for the blue lines while doing defense on Matthew when they can. Seems like scores right now is 166, 165. Very close game with Red Lions advantage so far. But Fire and Matthew are looking for a comeback here. It seems like Kaiju just got a possession foul, likely due to a failed double cycle. Seems like Ebac's trying to fill in that one spot. Interesting L2 work by Ebac. I'm not sure how that works, but he does it anyway. Seems like Fire filled off the last L4, and Matthew working on L3s now. Seems like he's just going to do one more L3. And it looks like Blue is getting 2 climbs. Looks like Red is only going to get 1 climb, but they still come away with the 2-point victory. All right, here we go. I assume there's no questions. All right, here in a moment, we'll start the. Oh, wait. Okay. Oh, stop recording. Oops. Mhm. What happened? I'm just unmute there. All right, starting the second match of this TLS week. Reefscape. We see a little bit of a different matchup here with the Birch Trees filling in for a teammate on the Red Alliance. Seems like Red Alliance has got 3 pieces so far. Blue Alliance coming in with a third. Seems like the Birch Trees is going in for a 3-piece with that chill out machine. Seems like Kaiju Jones is going to get right to cycling those L4s. Matthew, on the other hand, going for Algae. Same strat as last time. Seems like his teammate is going to be putting some Algae in the processor, his teammate Fire over there, while the Birch Trees will start working on Algae. Similar strategy to Matthew. Just clear it all off the reef first, and then go for floor. Seems like none of them have done any kind of Algae stealing so far. As I say that, Birch Tree's coming over to steal some Algae off the Red Alliance, but facing a little bit of pressure from Matthew. Looks like Fire. Matthew looking to hang around and get those fouls, but it seems like the Birch Trees just decides to go back over to the other side and work on their Algae. Matthew coming to steal some off the reef and a quick switch up there. Seems like he's trying to get a penalty from the Birch Trees. Let's see if Kaiju Jones can be pushing him in. Doesn't seem like it. Looks like they're just going to score that in the barge instead. Fire working on some L3s and 2s over there on the red line side. Seems like they're not doing double cycling. Kaiju Jones, on the other hand, his goal is to put some Algae in the processor and then do some more double cycling to get the score up. Seems like Fire on the other side still working on L2s. Matthew's still working on a barge. Seems like Red Alliance has a about 14-point advantage, 147 to 129. Then we see Birch Trees now focusing on L4 as all the Algae is off of the floor. Seems like Kaiju Jones got the similar advantage here, or similar goal here. Birch Trees getting in the way a little bit. Matthew looking for some L2 action there. Seems like Fire is looking for a similar fate. Now doing double cycles. Looks like Red is pulling away in this match, about a 25-point lead, 181 to 156. Now 164 to 181. Fire seems to get a double possession foul. Seems like Birch Trees is working on some L2s now, as L3 and L4 are already filled up. Looks like trying to get some core from that coral station. Kaiju Jones not going for a double cycle as we've previously seen. Fire filling up that last L4. It seems like their strategy is to work on their respective sides of the reef. Fire going to climb already, while the Blue Lines members are still hanging back, trying to score some extra coral to get ahead in this match. Each of them will only get one climb, as Chill Out cannot climb. It seems like, very close match, but only 20-point advantage for the Red Alliance. I was muted. Okay, so it seems like Matthew 42 and Fire are both going for double cycles, even though Matthew 42 is doing a chill out, which is not as common. It seems like the scores are very tight, only an 8-point advantage for the Blue Lions, 168 to 160, now 172 to 164. This matchup is changing very rapidly, and it seems like it's only going to get closer so far. It seems like Fire dropped a piece of coral on the Red Lines, and Matthew will just swipe that right up as his ground intake robot. Kaiju Jones moving to single cycles on L3, as most of those pegs are filled up, but there is still some L2s and L3s on the back there for them to collect. All of the algae is now gone, as we see, so all of these robots are now focused on scattering as many coral as they want. And now it is end game time, so we will potentially see some very late climbs as it's the tiebreaker match, so things might get a little close here. Seems like Fire fumbling around with that coral a little bit. Kaiju Jones put in L3. Seems like you're going to do a unconventional climb on the barge, while the birch trees will score an L1 and then park. Looks like the Blue Alliance is going to win this one with 237 to 228. All right, coming into one of our next matches in this TLS matchup. Seems like Red Alliance still going for all of their preloads. Matthew 42 struggling a little bit with that coral. He might not be able to place it in time. Seems like he's going to get that. Might only be 2 pieces though in auto. Blue Alliance coming up with an advantage after autonomous, 53 to 48, as I think they got one more piece, mate potentially after auto. Seems like Kaiju Jones and Birch Trees going back to their strategy of cycling all of that algae first, Fire on the other side of the field, taking note of that strategy and working on that as well. Seems like no algae stealing in play yet, but as we saw in the last match, the play of the game may change very rapidly as we see. And there goes Matthew 42 looking to steal some algae. That piece of algae in the process very precariously hanging out. Looks like the Birch Tree is going to try to push that right in, and it gets a sketchful. Matthew 42 getting a foul on the blue side of the field for pushing Birch Trees into his own reef zone, getting a zone foul there. Seems like Blue Alliance has a very slim lead. Now Red Alliance, 130 to 130 is tied up, folks. It's a very close match. Seems like Matthew's going to try to get some algae from the Blue Alliance barge zone, but gets a penalty courtesy of Kaiju Jones, who's now going to start working on all that L4 to get the most points that they can. Seems like Fire and Matthew are going to try to go to the same coral station, get a little tripped up over themselves. Fire, I'm not sure if that is an intentional strategy or not, but just flinging coral over to Matthew 42. Seems like it's working out for them, though, as they have a pretty good point score here. But Blue Alliance coming up with over a 20-point lead. Seems like Birch Trees and Kaiju Jones are both working on L3 now. Kaiju Jones seem to be working on L2 as well. Both these Red Alliance robots and Blue Alliance robots all working on corals. All the algae is now gone from the field. Seems like their strategy is to just go top to bottom. In some cases, do L2s first and then L3s. All while chill-outs begin to do some L1s, except for Matthew, who is still focused on an L3. In this matchup, he's shown that he's very good at doing all those lower branches, which is not something that's very common for chill-out players to do. We have endgame period now. We'll probably see some late climbs once again. Maybe some unconventional ones. Seems like Birch Tree's working on L1s now, getting a little tripped up over his teammate Kaiju Jones. Fire going to climb early. Matthew 422 getting one more L1. And it seems like the Blue Alliance may come away with a victory, 243, 222 here. Reefscape. All right, these robots will now go into pre-programmed autonomous periods. Not quite pre-programmed. This is not FRC, but I'm doing my best here. Seems like Birch Tree's going to go for a very smooth auto going behind the robot, something that is only very good chill-out players do. Looks like they're going to just go straight to algae scoring. Same with Matthew 422, trying to get as much of that algae off the reef as possible. In this matchup, we've seen lots of algae coming off of the reef from the other alliances trying to score their algae. Matthew 42 doing exactly that, almost getting a penalty from Kaiju Jones, but just slips right on by and goes back over to his side of the field, trying not to incur as many penalties as possible. So like Fire's teammate, strategy is to fling the algae over to the left side of the field for Matthew to collect into the barge. Seems to be working for them as the game is now 1 point advantage for Red, 118 to 117. I think Blue Alliance just got a foul from Fire over there on the red side of the field. That will contribute towards the Blue Alliance score some. Seems like 131 to 128, Blue Alliance slight advantage. Seems like they have now filled up all of their L4 branches. Red Alliance still working on that, diversifying their score a little bit. Blue Alliance now starting to work on L3s and L2s as Kaiju Jones has begun to double cycle. Double cycling is a very, very good strategy, only done by the best of players. Seems like now focusing on single cycling, while Red Alliance go into the same station. Looks like they have now filled up their L4 and are working on L3s too. Score is 170, 166, Red Alliance advantage. All right, Kaiju Jones back on that double cycling grind. All Birch Trees still working on that L3 and L2 branches. Fire trying to imitate some double cycling action. Seems like he's doing a fairly good job, but he's got a possession foul. So that will contribute towards the Blue Alliance score some. Matthew 422 trying to do some L1s for the Red Alliance. Seems like they have run out of L3, L2, and L4 on that side of the reef to fill. So now they will just go to L1s as a lower method of scoring, but still very useful. Scores are very tight right now. 205 to 207, Red Alliance advantage. 212 to 209 now, speaking. Now, more L1s getting filled up. Seems like Red Alliance has lots of L1s in the trough. Blue Alliance, not so much. First Street's kind of fumbling around with the Coral, trying to get it, scores it. Seems like Red Alliance will come away with the 5-point advantage. Wow. Very tight game. All right, that seems to have wrapped up this matchup between these two teams of two alliances each. Usually it's three. Seems like some players could not make it this time. All right, what now? I I got kicked out of the server. I would have.